Appreciate you joining me today, Noop. Episode number 7 of Droppin Knowledge podcast, hosted by myself. And the purpose of the podcast, man, it's the quarantine project that put together about 3 weeks ago. And my goal was to leverage my network. I knew I had a lot of special individuals within my network that I wanted to share their knowledge, their information with the rest of my network and with the rest of the world. So we just cover topics that are topics that, you know, many of us can learn from, take some different things from. And you're one of the folks that I definitely thought about when I kind of came up with this, that I knew I wanted to connect with. And so I don't even know how to introduce you, other than you're my new super informative, super educated brother, comedian. But how do you describe Willie Lynch Jr., man? How do you describe yourself?
Well, I'm uncircumcised, first of all, and I don't ever want people to forget that. I got a wild yam sitting right in these drawers of mine. Now, man, I'm Willie Lynch Jr., the traveling black vegan. I'm a comedian, a historian, fledgling herbalist, and just a servant of African people, man, from East St. Louis. Of course, like we said earlier, I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, founded January 5th, 1911, Indiana University, Alpha Delta chapter. I'm a stand-up comedian, man, so most people know me from doing stand-up. And when I was doing stand-up, you know, before I really got serious with stand-up, I had already, you know, went to school, got a bachelor's and a master's, history and education. So I was known for being relatively informative. And so I went from being a historian to now really studying food, studying herbs, studying health and nutrition, and I'm just combining all of that. So comedy, history, and nutrition, man. That's me, Willie Lynch Jr., the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition winner in 2012, seen on Bounce TV, Gotham Comedy Live. I wrote 4 jokes for Cat Williams. Nigga, I know Lil Real.
Where did I know a lot of folks have probably seen Willie Lynch Jr. pop across their screen. They're like, man, his brother named Willie Lynch Jr. for real? So why don't you talk about the origin, why that's your stage name, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, my real name is Anthony Collier. I'm 38 years old now, and I've been doing comedy, man, like off and on since I was 13. And one of the times I decided to get serious with it, I was getting my master's degree. And I knew at the time that my purpose here on earth was to study our history and teach our people our history. So we can learn from it and get out of the rut that we're in. And at the time in grad school, I was working at Belle Meade Plantation. Yes, nigga, I was working the fucking plantation, giving tours, dressed like motherfucking Chicken Joy's daddy. And I read the Willie Lynch letters, and it had a profound impact on me. It really blew my mind, because I was reading this letter, and I'm like, man, this was supposed to have been written in the 1700s. Everything that's happened in this letter is happening to our people right now. And so, again, I always wanted to do comedy. I always wanted to be a comedian. And, you know, something we can get into, I guess, maybe after this. I got sick a while, you know, in 2003. And so I couldn't even do stand-up. So when I was able to get my health back together, and I was able to do it, I remember I was like, I'm funny again. I said, I want to do comedy. And I felt like my ancestors were telling me, we won't sanction your doing comedy. We won't let you be successful at this unless you tell our people their stories through your comedy. And so I chose the name Willie Lynch. I remember one of my profiles was telling me, he saw me posting a lot of information on Facebook, just back to back statuses. He said, Noop, you need to get on Twitter, man. It's better for you than Facebook. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So eventually I got on there and I was trying to find a name. And I was like, I'm going to go by Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch was taken, so I did Willie Lynch Jr. And so I did the name to call attention to that letter, even though the letter was fictitious. Yeah. It's supposed to have been written in 1712. It was actually written in 1970 by Dr. Kwame Abena Ashanti in Durham, North Carolina. Also, Willie Lynch is one of the biggest bands in Ireland. So this was in terms of promotion, like, if you would look up, a lot of people want to find a Willie Lynch story out, so they go on YouTube and they type in Willie Lynch, right, and then my stuff comes up too. Right. So there were people that weren't even looking for me. They ended up finding me. So I did it for a host of reasons. But now I'm really kind of going by the traveling black vegan. I'm still Willie Lynch Jr., but you know.
Right. Dig that, man. So you talked about, you know, you thought this was part of your purpose and part of your plan while you're here on this borrowed time on Earth. talk about some of your influences. I know that, if anybody's ever come to your page, watch your live, you're great at always letting folks know where that information is, where you got this information is. Talk about some of your influences that just kind of shape some of the knowledge and some of maybe your virtual mentors.
Well, in terms of my influences, like when I went to Fisk, but before I got to Fisk, there was his brother named Kevin Hales. He's a professor at Parkland College in Champaign. He's since changed his name, and I don't want to butcher it right now, but I know part of it is Mansa. But he's the one that kind of helped set me in motion. I was at Parkland College, doing a bunch of wild stuff, and he kind of grabbed me and ended up getting me into Fisk and got me into history. And so being down at Fisk, I fell in love with the likes of W.B. Du Bois and all of the information, his perspective on the African world. And then at Tennessee State, I ended up coming across Dr. John Henry Clarke, and Dr. Clarke changed my mind on everything more so than anybody. He made me understand how to personalize history and to really learn wisdom, politics, and a host of other things from it. So in terms of the history and the intellectualism, I would say my training at Fisk University, Du Bois, Dr. John Henry Clarke, Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, Dr. Ray Wimbush, a host of those people. And then in terms of comedy, of course, Paul Mooney, Dick Gregory, Dave Chappelle, Red Fox, Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence, Marlon Wayans. And then in terms of the path that I'm on now, health and wellness and herbology, was the late, great Dr. Alfredo Bowman, aka Dr. Sebi. So those are my influences.
Got it. So I know with everything kind of going on currently in the world with the COVID-19, I've seen you've been active. You've been helping. Kind of talk about what you do, what you're doing, right? Because Dr. Sebi wasn't a U.S. doctor, right? But nevertheless, he had obviously been educated and worked with different people. Talk about kind of how you actually address and help people that you help without having the title sometimes that folks feel that you need to have to be able to do some of the things that you do.
Well, for me, a couple years ago, 2013, I had already been thinking about becoming a vegetarian because I found out that's how African people used to, live. But it was just hard, man, because niggas love meat, nigga. And I love goddamn salmon croquettes and some turkey wings and chicken thumbs. Nigga, I love all that shit. But I was trying to be righteous, you know what I'm saying? I was trying to be 360 degrees in terms of, my being a holistic African as opposed to being maybe 280 or 290. I wanted to be complete. So I know it was more than just having the information about history. It's also about nutrition because nutrition comes before everything.
Yeah.
So what happened was I stopped eating meat, man. And I started studying veganism in 2013. Came across Dr. Sebi, fell in love with his work. And I was living in Chicago doing stand-up at the time. I moved from Chicago, moved to New York. I actually got a chance to meet Dr. Sebi in Brooklyn on the 22nd of November. And what happened around a couple years later, a friend of mine passed. He's a comedian from New Jersey, on a New York circuit. And when he died, man, before he died, he told me he was sick. And he said, man, I got a brain tumor. And I was like, man, you ain't got to get no surgery, man. All you got to do is change your diet, yada, yada, yada. And he ended up dying a couple months later. And he died on my grandmother's birthday, May 21st, which is also the same day I won the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition and Festival, bitch ass niggas. So my best friend was kind of telling me, hey, man, you ought to get into this nutrition thing. He said, man, because I see you posting about this stuff, and I know you know what you're talking about, and I think you help a lot of people. So what I started doing in 2016 while still living in New York, I started designing meal plans and, just being like a wellness coach for people, teaching them how to eat the Dr. Sebi, from Dr. Sebi's methodology, his nutritional guide. I was really studying food, and I was getting a lot of people that was having me help them. A lot of people losing weight. A lot of people had diseases and stuff, and I was doing my best to help, but I was so new at this stuff. So something told me, you guys going to be more than the food. You have to look into the herbs. So instead of me just listening to Dr. Sebi on YouTube about, the food, I started going back listening and learning about the herbs. And I started buying books. Bought this book, it's called Alkaline Herbal Medicine. I started with that book. and it kind of helped set me in motion. And ever since then, now I just, I've been traveling the world, like studying herbs, going in the jungles in Belize, fucking around in Cuba, in Jamaica. And so instead of just doing meal plans with people now, like people used to always say, my clients, they would say, hey, if you had herbs, instead of telling me to go to this website or that website, if you had them, I'll buy them from you. And I was like, well, I don't really know nothing about that stuff. But then my ego said, well, learn it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing. And so what I do when people have, things going on, we do a consultation. And we just break down what's going on with them, and I show them how they got that way by virtue of the foods that they were eating. And then we discuss certain ways to get out of that rut, which herbs to use, which herbs are consistent with, taking care of specific maladies. Like, for example, if somebody had a problem with their blood, their iron levels, or if they're, severely anemic, or, they've been poisoned and something's going on in their blood, you give them like sarsaparilla or burdock. Somebody's bones is weak, you give them sea moss or shave grass or stinging nettle. So basically what I do, man, I make those recommendations, and I also have my own herbal compounds. Like, I'm perfecting those things now. I'm about to launch my business probably in the next couple of weeks, but that's how I help people, man.
That's dope. No, that's dope. Are you ever concerned? Are you ever concerned? Obviously, because people deal with real things, right? Real things, and they vary in terms of seriousness of what they may be dealing with. Given that you're still you're still learning, right? And we're always going to continue to learn, but self-admittedly, you're still learning. Are you ever concerned with information that you provide, and are you ever concerned with the information you provide?
No, because just by virtue of living, you're still going to be learning if you're an intelligent person. So, before I got serious with this stuff, I may post some certain things online and about health, and then I come to find out the stuff was wrong. That was before I really was into this stuff heavy. But it's like once I learn something, I know it's a reality and it's not, opinion based. Like I'm gonna run with that. I'll give a perfect example, man. Like it's an herb called blue vervain. It's one of my favorite herbs ever. It's one of the herbs that actually healed me. Just by virtue of my understanding life, I don't believe that blue vervain is going to work for anybody. I've used it, so I know it's going to work. And I've recommended and given it to so many people, and it always works. So knowledge is not power, like Dick Gregory taught us. Information is. And you want to make certain that you get the right information. If there's a bunch of there's a bunch of information out here, then it's up to you to be able to evaluate it, to literally, scrutinize to determine whether or not this information is adequate and accurate. And so once I find out the thing is accurate and there's nothing else to say about it, that's what I'm gonna go with. And that's why I've been successful helping people with damn near anything you can think of.
Right. I've seen a few, and I've seen some of the folks kind of share exactly what you've done for them. Talk about some of those situations that you've helped, clients of yours, and just, what were the issues? What did you recommend? And what were kind of some of the results and feedback that you got from those individuals?
Okay, I'm giving an example. And this was a couple years ago before I knew what I know now. A close friend of mine named Johnny. Johnny's from East St. lives in Atlanta. He's a teacher and he's a businessman, and he works with the NBA doing some highlights and editing and things of those things like that. But his sister had a stroke, I think in 2016, I believe, and I knew she couldn't walk. So from the basic information that I knew, I said, give her blue vervain. And she started taking the blue vervain. She was in a nursing home. She's 38 years old, couldn't walk. And in a matter of days, up to a week, she started walking around the nursing home. And then, the people at the nursing home, they're like, oh, maybe it's physical therapy. No, nigga, what no fucking physical therapy? It's that motherfucking plant.
Big. Go ahead.
Another example, man, one of my partners, one of the baddest chess players in the country right now. Unfortunately, he's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, but this nigga, blood pressure was airport food. That's what I call high. It was like 140 over 101 the other day, and that's high as shit. And it could have blew his kidneys out, or he could have had a heart attack or a stroke. So I gave him one of my compounds. One of them is a sea moss compound, and another one is called brain food. And these are a collection of herbs that literally relax the central nervous system, and they feed the brain, the food of the brain, which is potassium phosphate, magnesium phosphate, of course, copper. And he came over today, and his pressure is like maybe like 115/68, like it's normal now. You know, I was able to do that because I understood some basic things about the body. Like, see, Dr. Sebi taught us the basics, the fundamentals. And if you know the fundamentals, you can go anywhere from there. But if you don't know the basics, then you'd be always confused. So my point is, there's some basic things. Just knowing the basics, it makes it easy.
Yeah. So you talk about Dr. Sebi. A lot of folks have heard about Dr. Sebi. Why don't you give a quick summarization of his story and how and why you felt it impacted you?
Dr. Sebi was an African who was born in Honduras in Central America, in a village called Ilanga, November the 26th, 1933. Nigga, I should be pledged again. My memory was fucking amazing. But what happened with Sebi, you know, his grandmother, I believe his mother, they were all a part of the Marcus Garvey and UNIA movement. So he was grounded with that, you know, the Pan-African ideology, way of thinking. So it was all about Black first, Africa first, African for the Africans at home and abroad. He eventually came to the United States, came to New Orleans, I believe, in 1954, became a member of the Nation of Islam. And there he learned a lot about, you know, nutrition to an extent. Also, he learned about anatomy and some other things, and got a lot of discipline. And he was sick. He eventually got really, really sick. He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He had diabetes, impotence, you know, and he had asthma from birth. And so one of the brothers down in New Orleans said, "You need to go to Mexico. This man that'll heal you." Sebi was a merchant seaman, and you know, he'd been traveling around the world. He'd been trying to get everybody to heal him, anywhere from India to Moscow, you know, France. He was going everywhere. Nobody could heal him. So he listened to the brother, and Sebi, he went to Cuernavaca, Mexico, and he met a man named Alfredo Cortez, who was 94 years old. He had 3 wives with him and a goat that kept making all this fucking noise in his house. And he told Sebi basically, you know, the reason why you're sick is because you've been disobedient. You're not eating the food of your ancestors. And he made Sebi fast for 90 days, and he gave him 3 big bags of herbs that were already mixed up. And he had him drink, you know, 3 cups a day. And after 94 days, every single thing that he had wrong with him, you know, it dissipated. He was no longer diabetic, no longer impotent, no longer had paranoid schizophrenia. And so after that, he began to study botany, pathology, and biochemistry for 10 years. And for 10 years, just as intense study. And so he started healing people. And then he gave up his job in Mexico. He gave up his job in Los Angeles to go after this healing thing. And he started traveling all around Central America, South America, the Caribbean, Africa, Europe. And he started putting together these herbs and studying them. And he became a master healer, and he became a master teacher. And what caught me was the information that he gave and how he gave it. I'm a student of Dr. Clarke. Dr. Clarke is God to me. And if somebody's saying something too much like Dr. Clarke, I got to rock with you. And Sebi kept talking about Africa, Africa, Africa. In as much as he was an African born in Honduras, he understood who he was and where it come from. And he was talking about Marcus Garvey, who's one of my heroes. And I remember a sister I was real close with. She told me I had become a vegan. And I was posting things like tofu and other stuff like that. And she was like, "Man, this is a guy named Dr. Sebi that said we ain't supposed to eat that. It's not human food." And I'm like, "Man, you crazy. I'm listening to Dr. Africa. Who the fuck is Dr. Sebi? I don't want to hear that shit."
Right.
And I was real mean to her. And so she did the best thing she could have done. She just sent me a YouTube video, and I just watched his presentation, and everything he said made sense to me. So I abandoned the perspective from Dr. Africa, and I took up Dr. Sebi, and he helped save my nephew, who's my godson, up in Chicago, Baby, because Baby was sick for a long time, and he was able to heal him with his herbs. And just everything he said, it resonated with me, man. And he's allowing me to help take care of my mom and so many other people. And he's just a blessing. He was godsend.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. So, what are some of those? If you had to take a few things out there that you think maybe misinformation, right? Folks believe that they're on the right path, they're doing the right thing, but through your study and through your research, it's just not true, right? And I know you talked about people getting information, and there's a lot of information, but talk about some of those things that might be common that people think, hey, you know what, I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing one of these a day, but you would challenge that.
A perfect example is apple cider vinegar. A lot of people use apple cider vinegar, you know, to try to lose weight or to try to help with blood pressure. or acid reflux or something like that. Apple cider vinegar is very dangerous. I found out that it eats up the enamel in the teeth. It burns the gums, the esophageal wall. It actually strips the body of potassium, and you need potassium for the nerves, for the muscle contraction, for uh, your blood pressure because it's a vasodilator, so regulates blood pressure. You also need calcium, and it eats up calcium. It stimulates the thyroid gland. It's just overall dangerous, but a lot of people use it. Another
Right.
one is a plant called turmeric,
Yeah.
and turmeric is being pushed and pawned off as though it's a great thing, but turmeric is actually a hybrid poison herb that is not natural, and it actually destroys the liver. Like it may help with one thing, but it does other things that are detrimental. For example, uh, you can take what is it? You take some ground what is it? Pumpkin seeds. You grind them up, and you put them in some water and you drink them. If you're diabetic, let's say your sugar is like 300-400, which is dangerous. It'll drop your sugar almost basically to normal. But in about 3 or 4 days, you won't even be able to urinate again, right? Because it destroys the kidneys. So, in as much as it's helping one thing, it's destroying the other because it's unnatural and it's not a product of nature. And but those are two of the things, like aloe vera. These are herbs that have, been hybridized, and they're everywhere. There, every time you turn around, somebody's talking about them, which is kind of showing you that something's not right. Another example is black seed oil. Everybody's, using and promoting black seed oil. Like the book that I told you that I first started with, alkaline herbal medicine.
Yeah.
That's why I don't recommend it anymore because it had that black seed oil was good for you, and black seed oil literally destroys the liver and also leads to autoimmune diseases. So those are things, the misinformation. People talking about soy and tofu and things like that, and we shouldn't eat any of those. All you have to do is find out whether or not the thing is natural or not, and it's easy to find these things out. But I admonish people to never hold on to a position unless you're certain about it. And if there's tons of information proving that these things are detrimental, as opposed to showing that they're actually good and natural.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense. So I've seen you do your stand up comedy, and it's really well done in terms of you're gonna bring the funny, no doubt, but you also find a way to teach and educate. Kind of talk about so it's in the mode of Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle. It's kind of a thinking person's comedy, but it's absolutely a flavor of your own. Talk about how you kind of develop that.
Well, man, I mean, you saw me when I first started getting down. When I used to be like, my name is Willie Lynch, Junior. You got to bounce when you say the
Right.
Junior. I used to do all that goof ass shit,
Yeah.
and you know, it's like now I just sit down. Like I come on stage, I pull up, stool or the chair, and I just sit down on some Bill Cosby type shit, and I just start going. Um, like since this quarantine been happening, I just been studying so much and learning so much information. Sometimes I be forgetting I'm funny. And sometimes if I'm talking, because when I'm in the hood trying to educate, the brothers and the sisters about this shit, I
Yeah.
already know how their attention span is. So like I be in there talking crazy to them niggas, but they be laughing their ass off,
Yeah.
and but the information is still is good information. So what happened for me was I was so into this African stuff. Like when I got out of school and I started doing stand up, I had been reading every day and studying all this other stuff. So I'm so what they call pro black. And one of the things I wanted to do is teach through my stand up. And
Yeah.
I've just gotten so much better at it, man. And again, once I realized, like Dean Edwards said, he said, when you find out why you funny, can't nobody fuck with you. And like I know why I'm funny. And that's why I can't no nigga. I don't give a fuck if this Chappelle. None of them niggas. They can't nobody can fuck with me with this comedy, nigga. Nobody.
Right. So, what's been your take on? I'm assuming you've helped some people, right, during this most recent crisis. Kind of talk about that. What's been your experience? Have you helped people during this process, and how have you been helping people? Kind of, if you got a couple examples or so.
Okay, a couple of my friends, man, that I went to high school with, my homegirl was like, hey, my homeboy's like, hey, you got anything for blood pressure? And I was like, yeah. I told him I had it, whatever. He's like, I'm coming out and get it. And I had also posted some information like, hey, if you go to this store, you can get certain herbs. There's 3 herbs: nettle, raspberry, and I believe it was maybe ginger, the dandelion root. I was saying, if anybody during this quarantine, during this chaos, you got this, if anybody got high blood pressure, diabetes, or something like that, or poor circulation, You can take either one of those herbs separately or in combination, and they'll help relieve the blood pressure, problems with the kidneys. It'll help with some basic things you need help with. And so she ended up going to get the stuff. And then somebody at her job, had tested positive. And, so she ended up getting some of my herbs from me. And, she was like, hey, I was like, hey, well, I'm giving you this because you're my homegirl, but I got a thorough cleansing package I put together. And I told her how much it was and everything. And she said, she was like, all right, when you get it ready, let me know because, me and my husband going to get it. So I'm like, okay. But I'm constantly getting inundated with requests because everybody's scared, everybody panicking now.
Right.
In the middle of that, my son was on the way to, to this earth. He's, just about to be born. Then my mother got sick. So I didn't get a chance to get back with her soon enough. And then eventually when I did, she said, hey, I'm almost certain I got this shit. And, I'm like, all right, this is my first one. So what the fuck am I going to do? So I was sitting at the crib just doing some research. And I'm just looking at certain chemicals that are in certain plants. So I already had some stuff together, but I put some potent stuff together. And one of the herbs that I used, like I already mentioned earlier, was blue vervain. I mean, it's amazing in terms of deactivating viruses, cleansing the blood, helping boost the immune system, cleansing the liver, helping with the respiratory system. So I gave a blue vervain, and then I use other herbs like anamu, which is also called guinea hen root or Congo root, eucalyptus, man. This was some shit I came up on the fly with, dude. I was like, hey, take this, put it in the pot and boil that motherfucking snip it. And nigga, it worked. You know what I'm saying? So those are a few things. Also, it's an herb called kalawala. Because what I learned, everybody kept saying elderberry, elderberry, elderberry. Elderberry is a very powerful herb. But I was doing some homework, and I understand now, if someone has a virus and it's gotten to them and it's in the respiratory system like that, you don't want an herb that's going to boost the immune system because the immune system is already up. You know what I'm saying? It's already sitting there trying to fight this shit off.
Right.
So you want something to get the inflammation down and then regulate the immune system. But you still got to use elderberry. So what I did, I used a herb called kalawala, another herb called palo guaco I got from Jamaica, and I got another one from Mexico. But you put those herbs together, and man, they went to sleep, woke up sweating, pissing, and was high as a motherfucker. Because that blue vervain, I gave it to him in a tincture form, meaning I had soaked it in, let it macerate in alcohol. So that's what I did for that.
So you drop a lot of herbs that one uses, but someone who, is new to this world, new to this space, what are some give me some examples of some of the ways that you prepare some of these herbs to take them in?
Okay, well, depending on what's going on, like what I've gotten good at is I grind my stuff. I got a big old industrial grinder. Like I buy my herbs from all over from the tropics, and I'll just put them in the grinder and just grind them up and to a powder form. And then I figure out what other herbs I want to connect with them based off of the chemical affinity, based off of dude, I'm getting cold at this shit.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? When I know, okay, this has what is the compound? This might have juglidine in it. I think I'm saying that right. Or if I know specific alkaloids in the plant, I'll just put all those plants together. So anyway, I do it. I have them ground up, put them in capsules. Also, I cook them. I boil them. Cause I've been doing that too. Boil them. Put the roots together. Like for example, the guinea hen root that I just got in yesterday. I'm gonna boil that with probably a couple other herbs and make a really, really strong tonic. Just you drink that. So you do it that way. You can steep them. Like if you have something like where there are leaves or berries, there's two ways really to use the herbs in terms of drinking. You have what we call an infusion. An infusion is when you boil some water, spring water, and then you take the herbs and you sit it in the water, for a little bit.
Okay.
It's steeping it. Also, we have what we call a decoction. A decoction is when you got real thick ass roots or tree bark. So you can't just sit it in the water for it to pull everything out. You got to boil it. So you do it in a decoction or do a decoction, and then I always add agave syrup just to sweeten it up if people prefer that. But those are some of the ways that I prepare the herbs.
Got it. So if somebody's trying to, I know I've hit you before, right? Somebody they have their mind up. They want to get their health right. Obviously, you talk about things that we shouldn't be doing. What are some of those things that you're telling somebody who's trying to pull themselves together? They want to live a healthier life, and maybe even want to, be a little bit more extreme. Maybe because there's some sickness or some health issues going on. Kind of, what guidance do you give them?
Well, the first thing is we understand like what is food and what food is not. Like when you can make somebody understand that, that's the first step. Because that means, okay, you may not be perfect, you may not even change tomorrow, but at least you're cognizant of the fact that I'm eating a cheeseburger or a turkey burger or some chicken or fish, and I know for a fact now after talking to this dude that this ain't food. So
Right.
that's the first thing. We understand what is food. Then we look into our history. You say, well, what did African people used to eat prior to coming over here? And once you understand that we are frugivores or herbivores, you know, again, it makes more sense. So you're like, okay, the first thing I tell them to do is to just, go on a fast. Try to do at least 7 days where you're just doing fruits, a gallon of spring water. You're doing herbs like sea moss, and you're doing an herb that's high in iron like sarsaparilla or burdock. You're drinking those, you're taking your sea moss, and you're eating stuff like watermelon with seeds in them, grapes with seeds, dates, tamarind, figs, walnuts, Brazil nuts, and you're getting tons of sunlight. Just get tons of sunlight. And then you'll start to notice how the body just starts to change because now the body's finally getting food, so it's getting fuel. Because what I found out, Nuke, for years people living and we ain't even ever really eating food. So that's
Right.
why the first time I give people the herbs or I have them eat food, like I got a lot of energy, I can think better, So those basic things I do. I let them understand what food is and what food is not, and what certain things do to the body, and just show them how powerful native plants, native fruits, native vegetables are.
Gotcha. So talk about your business. You talk about, potentially kind of open up shop in a couple of weeks. So what is your business? What services are you providing? Connecting with you is going to do what for an individual?
Well, now do I sell herbs, but I finished selling pussy, but only on the internet. And no, wait, but connecting with me, I'm teaching people how to connect with nature / God and the ancestors. Um, I'm showing you how to clean your body out, showing you how to feel better, how to get energy, how to maintain energy, how to be able to boost the immune system, how to fight off these toxic pathogens and, viruses that are out here. Literally just showing you how to get the strength back that you lost so long ago. Showing you a new life, man. It's people, man, that I've helped, you know, that were like insane, and once they started changing diet, once they started using the herbs, now they normal, you know. They still cockeyed the motherfucker, but niggas ain't. They getting sleep now. You know what I'm saying? It ain't like constant anger, constant state of rage, or bowels always obstructed. So in essence, connecting with me, I'm going to show you how to connect with nature. I'm going to show you how to get as close to nature / God / ancestors as possible. And not by doing anything miraculous, but just connecting you back with the ways of old, the ancient ways. Because one of our problems, Nuke, is we've like so disconnected from our ancestors. That's why we, in the state that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I've heard it from your page or Dr. Sebi, but when one gets sick, and maybe that's too broad of a question, but what's happening when somebody gets sick, kind of inside the body, kind of in layman's terms?
Well, what's happening is, the body's broken down, the immune system has been compromised. And so now the body's trying to fight this stuff off. So like when somebody gets a fever, one of the things they always try to get us to do, we got to break the fever, get the fever down, because we don't want nothing to happen to this person. But they don't understand that the fever is a sign. It's the body saying, hey, something's not right. Get this shit up out of me, bitch ass nigga. That's what the body's saying. Like when you have, like for me, when I get sick, when it's coming out, like my lymph nodes here on my side of my neck, they kind of swell up a little bit. Or even someone with the tonsils. And those are signs the body just saying, whatever it is that you're doing, you need to stop. You know, um, and again, the only reason why this stuff is happening is because the immune system has been compromised. It's been weakened. The mucous membranes all over the body have been, compromised. And
Right.
so again, you do the exact opposite. The things that got you sick, you do the exact opposite. So you stay away from those things. And you use herbs, sunlight, and spring water or thermal water to build the body back up where it needs to be.
Gotcha. So give me a few. I know I've talked to you before. You recommended some things. So you're talking about just good water to drink. It's high in pH. What are some good brands out there that from the water perspective?
The number one is Starkey, has a pH of 9.6. Starkey, Starkey. Number two, we have Iceland, like the country Iceland, has a pH of 8.8. Number three, we have Icelandic, so that's Iceland with IC at the end. That's a pH of 8.4. Then we have Eternal, that's 7.8 to 8.0. Then we have Mountain Valley, that's about 7.8 up to 8.0. After that, we have Fiji is about 7.4. Then Crystal Guys are 7.2.
So okay. Um, what are some I just want to read. I want to start to educate myself. What are some good books that folks could dive into to see what's up in
In terms of health,
yeah, in terms of health.
um, well, I mean, there are a couple books I can recommend, but one of the reasons why I kind of hold off on doing that is because these books might contain misinformation, and a lot of us aren't, intellectually equipped to be able to chew up the meat and spit out the bones.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
So a good starter, and it's a sophomoric, piece of literature, to say the least. Saying that respectively, like I mentioned, alkaline herbal medicine and alkaline herbal. I mean, alkaline. I forget what the book is called, but it's a green book, but written by the same author, Akil Anis. Those are good books as starters. Um, those are good books. But in terms of like getting the information, what I would do, man, I would watch every single thing, every interview that Dr. Sebi ever had. Like that's like when it comes to history, I tell people, they say, well, what book should I read? And I can rattle off maybe at least about 1,000 history books. But the first person I mentioned is Dr. John Henrik Clarke. I say go on YouTube and watch his documentary that was produced and narrated by Wesley Snipes called A Great and Mighty Walk.
Yeah.
Or you could read his book called My Life in Search of Africa. So in terms of health, I would say start with Dr. Sebi and go from there. Because Dr. Sebi, a lot of times he spoke in generalizations and he spoke kind of vague sometimes. But if you study him, if you just hang on his every word, once you do the research, because you got to work backwards when it comes to this. I say start with him and work backwards. So that's what I've been doing. And it's like,
Right.
man, I'm learning so much. Everything he said was correct. When he talks about the importance of iron, and like sometimes Sebi made you think that he was less than because he said I don't read books and I didn't go to school. You're like, well, I went to school. How the fuck you ain't gonna know nothing? How you gonna know something you didn't go to school?
Right.
And the more I start studying this stuff, like I'm studying biochemistry, Nuke, and I'm finding out the shit that Sebi was saying. It's popping up. Everything he said just happens to pop up and it's correct. I've even, been able to connect the ancient system of Ifa, which comes out of southwestern Nigeria and Benin, their system, spiritual system, which is also known as Santeria and Candomblé and, to an extent, voodoo. I've been able to connect that spiritual system with biochemistry. And then while I'm studying the Dogon, which comes from West Africa also, I was able to also connect the ancient Egyptian, ancient Kemetic, spiritual system or cosmology with biochemistry. I haven't studied, ancient Egypt in terms of their cosmology as much as I've studied, the Yoruba. But this shit is like literally identical. Like when you see me talking about Ogun,
Right.
Ogun is the god of war, the god of iron, the god of metals, the giver of metals. And, I remember brother was referring to Dr. Sebi as Ogun. And I'm like, okay, if Dr. Sebi would be any one of the Orisha or the deities or the spirits from Ifa, why wouldn't he be Osayin, who's the master of the forest? He knew all the secrets to the plants. Why wouldn't Sebi be him as opposed to Ogun? And then I understood the connection. Before Sebi changed his business, it was originally called the Ogun Institute of the Ogun Institute, the Ogun Herbal Institute Research Institute in New York. And he ended up changing because he knew Black Americans were so scared of voodoo and shit like that. So he's
Right.
like, let me change this motherfucker. But again, when it comes to Ogun, he's the god of iron, the physical, the metal iron. And that metal iron is used for the physical war, the physical battle, the external battle, if you will. But also Ogun, which is the iron inside of the body, which you find in the blood and the hemoglobin, if you don't have that metal, the plant version of the vegetable version of that, you can't fight off any disease. So it's literally the exact same thing, you know. So in terms of books, man, I would say Akil Anis, he has a book called Alkaline Herbal Medicine. Um, and the other one's called Alkaline Plant-Based Diet. Now I'm going to write my own because I told you I wasn't satisfied with what I was reading in there.
Right.
Because the books were put out too soon. The research could have been, more thorough. But you can start there, but I would always start with Dr. Sebi.
Gotcha. So you kind of we're getting ready to wrap here. Anybody who might have jumped in later, what have you, talked about kind of impact that John Henry Clarke had on you. Kind of talk about him a little bit more and just what he means to you and why it was so impactful.
First of all, nigga, how you gonna have me on here for 40 minutes, nigga? I'm an hour and a half, nigga. Let's look anyway. But Dr. Clarke, man, okay, when I was at Fisk, I was going through my depression and I was real sick and stuff like that. And doing the work was a chore for me because I was sick. I couldn't think. And I was having anxiety attacks and all those different types of things. And when I started watching Dr. Clarke, he kind of reminded me of my grandfather. And just the way he told his stories, they had so much soul in them, those stories. And he literally connected me. He personalized the history for me. It wasn't just it wasn't just about learning dates just so you can sit on the yard with somebody or go to the barbershop and just argue about the morals, none of that shit. He showed me the interrelationship between world history and Africa and
Right.
how everything that's going on around us, where it came from in this relationship, to the present. He was just so profound to me. Then like his ability to teach, like when you sit that you listen to him, you can tell he's a real classroom teacher. He wasn't just lecturing. He was literally telling you, read this book, read that book. Okay, you got to go get this book, but it's published in French. Like he was just probably the greatest teacher to ever live in terms of history. And he was my everything, man. And like I actually dream about him from time to time. When I go to New York, when I was living there, I would stop by his old brownstone. But it was him who woke me up, man, completely. Du Bois first, but then him. Like Du Bois was a snob. He was an aristocrat. You know what I'm saying? He was a bourgeois, but he still loved African people. Now Dr. Clarke was a people's historian. He was self-taught. He didn't go to Harvard and stuff like that. So just his ability to communicate with the people, that charisma, that pizzazz, that sparkle, he had it, and most folks didn't have it, man. And that's why I just love him, man. And he's my everything, bro.
That's dope. That's dope. Actually, something's wrong because I'm not getting all of the. I got a couple questions out here that I missed, but somebody wanted to know. My brother, what up? Shout out, Joe New. He wanted to know what's your perspective on vaccinations and mandatory vaccinations, et cetera. Kind of talk about that a bit.
I can talk about it, but it ain't no perspective. If your great grandmother didn't get no vaccination, well, fuck you gonna get one for? We all grew up in the church. Good enough for mother, good enough for mother, good enough for father. Nigga, if they didn't do that shit, why would you shouldn't even have no conversation with nobody about that. You know what I'm saying? If it's mandatory, nigga, then you know what you gotta do, nigga. That's rape. You put a vaccine in somebody, that's raping them. Remember, the body's made up of 102 minerals. The reason why we get sick, and I should have thrown this in the, when you asked the question earlier, like when somebody gets sick, what's going on?
Right.
This is another way to answer that question. Our body's made up of 102 minerals or elements. And the reason why we get sick is when the body's depleted of those minerals or those elements. And those elements can only be gained, via a plant. So we're talking about calcium, we're talking about iron, potassium, etc. You have to get the plant version of those. And so, because those are the only things that can assimilate with the cells of a human being. So when we talk about vaccinations, those things don't come from plants. They cannot assimilate with the cells of your body. So therefore, they're toxic and they should not be used, should not be touched. And again, the conversation, nigga, anybody that asks you to get a vaccination or talk to you about that shit, be serious. You ought to beat their motherfucking ass.
So obviously you have a platform on your Facebook page, Twitter, social media, where you do a lot of talking to specifically African people. What are some of the messages that you try to get out that you can kind of share with this audience? Yeah.
Number one, that we are African people. And if anybody denies that, then they've misread or misunderstood or misinterpreted world history. Number two, Nobody's gonna save us but us. This is why you always hear me talking about the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is why you always hear me talk about Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey and even Du Bois and Sebi. Like, it's about self-reliance, taking care of home, everything that you need. You should be able to produce it. You should be able to take care of yourself, your family. You should be able to defend yourself. Um, you know, those those are the things that I want to get across. I also want to get across, like, because for me, Dr. Clarke was everything. But then I ended up turning into Dr. Sebi. And it was like I had to have both of them. So before we could even talk about history and learning what happened to us in the past, and so we can understand what's going on in the present and predict the future, you got to have the proper nutrition. Because if you don't have the proper nutrition, what good is it knowing all of this information? You know about the Moors, you know about, you know, brothers in the Congo, you know about Manu Matapa, you know about Zimbabwe, etc. You know about all these different ancient places, ancient civilizations, but you got diabetes. It don't mean nothing. So if you don't know how to eat, you can't even think straight, you can't see straight, you can't protect yourself, whether it's a viral infection or a little physical assault with somebody else trying to attack your person. So again, just number one, knowing who we are, knowing where we came from, knowing that there's nobody greater than we as the African people. We're the only people that's going to save ourselves. We have to learn what to eat, how to eat. We have to learn how to master the land again. We have to go back and listen to our ancestors. Like in the system of Ifa, it says just because one dies does not necessarily make them an ancestor. It is the work and the noble deeds that that person did while they were alive. And so we got all of these ancestors to look forward to, look up to, and petition to for help. And so many of us ignore them. And if they already told us what to do, Malcolm X already told us what to do. Elijah Muhammad already told us what to do. Booker T and Garvey, they already told us. So just go listen to the ancestors. You don't have to listen to nobody else new. Like, nigga, don't listen to me. I don't even listen to me, nigga. I'm not gonna rewatch this shit. I'm crazy. Nigga, listen to Malcolm now.
Right.
That's what I be on, Nope.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Nope. Man, this is great. We could probably talk for another hour, man, but I want to respect your time. I know that everybody can only take in so much at one time, but obviously they can definitely link with you on your Facebook page as Willie Lynch Jr. What's your Twitter?
My Twitter is Willie Lynch _JR. Same as my Instagram.
Name is Instagram, and then you talked about the business. So when should we look for the business to actually be officially open for business?
Well, I'm waiting on my old lady for that shit, but it's soon. But people still can contact me. You can hit me on.
Yeah.
So again, if somebody got anything going on, you can hit me up now because we still, getting people together. We still laying some groundwork. We putting some stuff together for like in literally every part of the country, man, from Chicago to New York, to Atlanta. We're getting people together. We showing African people everything that African people need to survive. This is not about making money off folks, even though business is business. But it's about survival and it's about spreading the proper information. And nigga, I pledge. I ain't like a lot of these cat ass niggas. I pledge, nigga, so I'm doing the work of the motherfucking nigga named Diggs.
So what about the book? When is the book? You talked about the book. When is the book coming? I want to put some pressure on you right now, so I can put it out there, put it in the air.
Hey, won't you produce that motherfucker? You do something with me, help me get it done. It won't take me too long because I got all of this information now. And what I already have a lot of it written out in note form.
Yeah.
Because I got this little blue book, and it's something I recommend people do. Go to Target and get you one of them little. It's about maybe 8 inches, I think, but it's a nice little like journal or whatever. But I put all my information in there, whether it be history or chemistry, organic biochemistry, whatever. So I got a bunch of information in there, and so now I'm working backwards. So I want to put out a book on herbs. Probably like maybe like 50 go-to herbs or 100 go-to herbs or whatever. Coming out with a cookbook, just a bunch of little bitty things like that. Then I want to write a book on I want to do several different treaties like the Moors. If y'all ever get a chance, look up a great ancient African named Ahmed Baba from the University of St. Corey at Timbuktu. He wrote, I want to say he wrote 47 books on 47 different subjects. And everybody talking about that Moor shit. Remember, he was kidnapped when the Moors came and destroyed the Sungay Empire. He was taken to Morocco. But I want to do my version of the Souls of Black Folk because I love Du Bois so much, and I want to give an updated version, not an updated version, but just from my perspective in the 21st century. I want to do one, of course, on health and wellness. I want to do one on the history of the African history, the African side of Islam. So it's a bunch of stuff I got working to do. I just gotta like, if I can just keep chipping away at these things, I'll be able to get them done.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan, dude. So yeah, brother, I appreciate it, man. This has been dope. Like I said, there's so many facets of you, brother. You're truly, man. I truly respect you, brother. From the time I met you, I told you you're special. You know what I'm saying? You remember what I told you? I told you you're special, move, and I indeed believe that. I've seen your work. I've seen the way that you've cared and shared with our people, man. So that's truly a blessing, brother. So continue to do the good work. Appreciate your time today, and you want to leave us with anything?
First, I want to just throw this out there for y'all. We get off here. Knowledge Beckham is one of the dopest niggas that ever lived.
Thank you.
This nigga said thank you. I'm talking to the people, nigga, not you. But bro, like since I met you, you had a profound impact on me. I was sitting there watching how you was doing outriggers, done my homework, and they was like, this nigga had a whole bunch of paper, and he stopped all the shit he was doing to commit to Lil Real. You know what I mean? Like it was times, dude, when I had lost my job, you would just randomly hit me up, here go a couple dollars. Then just the entrepreneur spirit, you know what I'm saying? And then that new swagger, just that new ego, that intellect. And you ain't never give a nigga nothing for free. I remember asking you to do something. He's like, all right, it's $50 though. I was like, damn, we can't see. But it was just, you just been a staple in my life, bro. And every time I do something, a lot of times I be literally hoping that I get your blessing. I don't ever ask you for it, but I can see when you kind of give me the nod. Like I was going through it, man, a couple years ago, and I called you. I was in New York, you know what I'm saying? My protege, I took to New York, nigga, he started blowing the fuck up.
Yeah,
Here I am, depressed.
Yeah.
And nigga, you hit me with some game. You was like, "Noob, stay the course." Like that was kind of the basis of what you said. Then Bill Bellamy ended up saying the same shit, So it made me. It was that conversation I had with you, then the one I had with Bill, and then the one I had with DL about 2 years ago. That literally made me kind of be able to be comfortable right now. Because of course, nigga, we was chasing the fame, chasing the comedy, and all that. And I ain't never gave it up, but it was like, nigga, like you said, Noob, you special. You got your own lane, and ain't nobody doing what you're doing. And because of the stuff you done told me, you know what I'm saying, nigga, I'm one of them niggas now, nigga.
Yeah, yo, Noob, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. So we'll circle back. Keep doing what you're doing, bro.
All right, man. We need a part 2, man. Them people need more of this nigga named me.
No doubt. Yo.
All right, bro.